markings. On the surface of any bone, you will see certain projections or certain depressions. These markings appear on the bones wherever tendons and ligaments or fascia attaches. Now we are going to look at different processes on the bones. This is scapula, and here you are looking at the example of a process which is spine. So this is the spine of scapula. This is the lateral view of the scapula. This is the acromion process, and this is coracoid process. This is the humerus bone, and here at its upper end you will see this rounded projection. This is head. Now adjacent to head you are also looking at these small rounded processes. One is smaller than the other. So the bigger one is the greater tubercle and the smaller one is the lesser tubercle. Now look at the lower end of the humerus. Here you can see the knob-like structures. These are condyles. Now in case of the condyles of humerus, these condyles have separate names. Now this pulley-like condyle is trochlea and this rounded one is capitulum. Now look at the bony projections adjacent to the condyles. So one is medially located and its name is medial epicondyle, and this one is laterally located, hence its name is lateral epicondyle. Now above to the epicondyle there is a prominent ridge. This is known as the supracondylar ridges. This one is medial supracondylar ridge and this one is lateral supracondylar ridge. This is the hip bone and this is the iliac crest. This is an example of crest. This is ischial spine. On the hip bone, look at this rounded elevation which is roughened also. This is tuberosity and here this is ischial tuberosity. Now you are looking at the pubic part of the hip bone, and here you can see a small raised elevation which is called as pubic tubercle. This is the femur bone and this is its anterior view. This is the head and this is the neck of the femur. Adjacent to it you can see a large elevation. This is called as trochanter. Now as this is large, this is greater trochanter, and here you can see a smaller elevation. This is lesser trochanter. Now in between these two trochanters you can see a line. This is called as intertrochanteric line. Now this is the same femur but from the posterior view. Here you can see more clearly the greater and the lesser trochanter, and in between the greater and lesser trochanters you can see a raised area which is more prominent than the line, and this is called as crest. This is intertrochanteric crest of femur. This is the lower end of the femur, and here you can see two big rounded knob-like projections. These are called as condyles. This is the posterior view of the condyles and this is the anterior view of the condyles. Below to this external auditory meatus, you can see a process like projection. This is the styloid process and this blunt projection is mastoid process. This is the lower end of the tibia and fibula. At the lower end you can see this rounded projection. This is the medial malleolus, and on the lateral side on the fibula this is the lateral malleolus. looking at different fossas on the bones. A fossa is a general term for any depression or cavity in or on a bone. Now here, look at the posterior surface of the scapula. This is the spine of the scapula. Now, there is a depression above this spine and below this spine. This depressed area of the bone is known as supraspinous fossa, while the area below the spine is infraspinous fossa. Now, in between these two tubercles, you see a furrow, a cleft-like depression. This is called as sulcus. As this sulcus is between the two tubercles, the name of this sulcus is intertubercular sulcus. This is greater sciatic notch and this one is lesser sciatic notch. On this hip bone, this is the pubic part of the hip bone and this is the ischial part of the hip bone. And here you can see a large hole, and this is an example of a foramen, and this is obturator foramen. Now look over here. This is the cranial cavity. Here you can see multiple openings. These are all foramina and they have specific names. Now here, this biggest foramen, this is the foramen magnum. This is the lateral view of the skull. And here you are looking at this opening. This is known as external auditory meatus.